The price of arrogance. She didn't own a seat. She owned the airline. The battle at 40,000 feet. She thought she had it all. The man, the money, the first-class ticket to paradise. But when Sasha Cross stepped onto the gleaming private jet, she found an unexpected obstacle: her lover's quiet wife. What began as a high-altitude power play turned into the most devastating humiliation of her life. She was about to learn that the woman she dismissed as a nobody didn't just have a seat on the plane. She owned the entire airline. This is the story of how a mistress's arrogance led to her final downfall. Have you ever underestimated someone so deeply that your world crumbled? Share your story in the comments. The invitation to the gallows. The air in the private lounge at London Heathrow Airport hummed with a different kind of silence. It was the muting of sound by deep pile carpets, velvet upholstery, and the unspoken understanding that everyone present was wealthy enough not to speak above a polite murmur. Sasha Cross, however, had never been good with polite murmurs. She checked her reflection in the gilded mirror, adjusting the strap of her crimson Prada dress. Her blonde hair, the product of a 6-hour salon visit, cascaded over her shoulders. She was, in a word, immaculate, a predator wrapped in luxury. Her phone vibrated. A message from Victor. "Just landed. Heading over. You better be ready." A slow, satisfied smile spread across her face. Ready. She'd been ready for this her whole life. Victor Thorne was her ticket, not just to this lounge or the Gulfstream GU700 waiting outside, but to everything. He was a finance titan, a shark in a Zegna suit, and he was, for all intents and purposes, hers. She grabbed her Chanel bag and walked toward the discreet door leading to the tarmac. A lounge attendant, all smiles and deference, opened the door for her. "Mr. Thorne's flight is this way, Ms. Cross." Sasha inhaled. It smelled of kerosene and money. The plane was magnificent, a gleaming white spear with a dark blue stripe, and the stylized logo of Apex Air Charter on the tail. This was Victor's preferred airline, the most exclusive charter service in the world. As she neared the steps, she saw the flight coordinator at the door, Charlotte, a woman with a perfectly neat bun and a smile that never reached her eyes. But Charlotte wasn't looking at her. She was looking past her, at someone who had just emerged from the lounge. Sasha turned, and her perfect day soured. It was her, Ilara Hayes, the wife. Sasha's lip curled into a micro-sneer that she quickly hid. She had only seen pictures of Ilara, and they were universally unflattering. The reality was somehow worse. Where Sasha was a blaze of crimson and gold, Ilara was a study in beige. She wore a simple oatmeal cashmere jacket, functional gray trousers, and sensible-looking loafers. Her dark hair was pulled into a simple, severe bun, and her face was clean of makeup. She looked less like a billionaire's wife and more like his moderately paid accountant. Ilara carried her own small rolling suitcase, struggling slightly as the wheel caught on the tarmac. "He brought her." Sasha's mind reeled. "He's bringing his little disheveled wife on our trip." This was supposed to be their anniversary, the anniversary of the day they met, while Ilara was probably at some pathetic charity luncheon. Rage, hot and sharp, flared in Sasha's chest. But then a new, delicious thought replaced it. This wasn't a problem. This was an opportunity, a chance to establish, once and for all, who the real woman in Victor's life was. Sasha slid forward, her heels clicking determinedly. She stopped directly in front of Ilara, forcing the older woman to halt. "Ilara, right?" Sasha said, her voice dripping fake sweetness. She didn't offer a hand. Ilara looked up, her eyes, a surprisingly clear, steady blue, meeting Sasha's. "Yes, and you are Sasha." It wasn't a question. That's right, Sasha smiled, gesturing to examine her up and down. Oh dear, did Victor forget to tell you where you were going? We're heading to St. Bart's. It's dreadfully hot. That jacket might be a bit much. Ilara's expression didn't flicker. I'll manage. I'm just so surprised to see you, Sasha continued, loud enough for the flight coordinator to hear. I thought you were more, I don't know, the stay-at-home and knit type. But good for you, getting out. It's so important for people in your position to see the world. She was baiting her, insulting her, calling her a charity case. The wife was just baggage Victor was forced to drag along, and Sasha was the main event. That's kind of you to be so concerned about my comfort, Ilara replied, her voice impossibly, frustratingly calm. She made a move to step around Sasha. Sasha blocked her way again, leaning in close, dropping her voice to a venomous whisper. Let's get one thing clear, Beiji. You might have the ring for now, but I have the man. You are a guest on my trip. Try to remember that. Sit in the back, read your little book, and stay out of the way. Maybe Victor will toss you a souvenir. Sasha felt a chill of victory. She had drawn the battle lines. She watched Ilara's face, expecting the tears, the anger, the satisfying break in her composure. Ilara simply held her gaze for one long, silent moment. The sound of the jet's auxiliary power unit filled the gap. Are you quite finished? Ilara asked, as if inquiring about the time. Before Sasha could retort, a loud voice boomed across the tarmac. There you are. Victor Thorne appeared, all teeth and testosterone, his satellite phone already glued to his ear. No. Tell Smith that if he doesn't close by Friday, the whole deal is dead. I don't care. Dead. He snapped the phone shut and tucked it into his pocket, his smile instantly returning as he looked at Sasha. You look like £1,000,000, darling, he said, kissing her directly on the lips, a deliberately theatrical gesture for Ilara's benefit. Then he turned to his wife. The smile vanished. Ilara. It was a cold, flat acknowledgement. You're here. Fine. Get on the plane. Don't cause a scene. Hello, Victor, Ilara said, her voice still impossibly neutral. Come on, Sasha, Victor said, throwing an arm around her waist and steering her toward the stairs, leaving Ilara alone on the tarmac. Sasha glanced over her shoulder, giving Ilara a triumphant, pitying smile. Ilara, she noted, hadn't moved. She just watched them, her face unreadable. 2. The subtle shift inside the cabin, the scent of fresh roses and rich leather hit Sasha. Charlotte, she instructed the flight coordinator. I'll take a glass of the good champagne before we push back, and make sure my guest, she gestured toward Ilara, has plenty of water. She looks a bit dehydrated. Charlotte smiled that plastic smile. Of course, Ms. Cross. Sasha sank into the plush cream leather seat, sighing with pure pleasure. This was her world, and Ilara was just a ghost haunting it. Ilara boarded moments later, silently stowing her small bag in the overhead compartment, a task Victor didn't even bother to observe, as he was already on his satellite phone, yelling again at someone named Smith. Ilara! Victor barked, muffling the phone. Sit there! He pointed to a single seat in the rear of the main cabin, near the galley and the lavatories. It was clearly the least desirable seat. Sasha watched, sipping her champagne. This was perfect. The wife banished to the back. Ilara, without a word of protest, walked to the back, sat down, and buckled up. A moment later, she pulled a worn, dog-eared paperback book from her bag. Pathetic, Sasha muttered to Victor, who had hung up his call. What's that, darling? He asked. Loosening his tie. Her, sitting back there like a servant. Why did you have to bring her? You said this was our trip. Victor sighed, his eyes hard. Shareholder business, Sasha. Annoying but necessary. There's a spousal retreat in St. Bart's I'm supposed to attend with her for one of my key investors. She's just paperwork, an accessory. The real trip, he said, kissing her neck, is with you. You're the one in the master suite. She's in the guest house, if she's lucky. This appeased Sasha. An accessory. She liked that. She was the star. Ilara was the background extra. The engines roared to life, and the G700 taxied down the runway with a powerful, smooth surge. Within minutes, they were airborne, soaring above the gray haze of New York. Once they reached cruising altitude, the performance began. Sasha was determined to make the next 5 hours as uncomfortable as possible for Ilara, and as gratifying as possible for herself. She laughed loudly at Victor's jokes. She fed him a chocolate-covered strawberry from the exquisite platter Charlotte served. She put her legs across his lap, whispering in his ear and kissing him deeply, all the while knowing Ilara was only a few rows back. She decided to take a series of selfies. She angled her phone, capturing the luxurious cabin, the champagne, and Victor's adoring gaze. In one shot, she deliberately tilted it to catch the background. There, just visible in the frame, was Ilara, a smudge of beige, engrossed in her book. Sasha wrote a caption for her private Instagram story, reserved for her closest frenemies. Finally off to paradise with my man. Had to bring the extra baggage, LOL. Some people just don't know when their time is up. Winning. First-class life. She hit send, feeling a rush of adrenaline. About an hour into the flight, Victor fell asleep, his head tilted back, snoring softly. The cabin went quiet, save for the hum of the engines. Sasha was bored. She unbuckled and decided to stretch her legs and pay the accessory a little visit. She sauntered toward the back of the plane, pretending to go to the lavatory. Ilara didn't look up from her book. Enjoying the flight? Sasha asked. Leaning on the bulkhead, Ilara finished her page, then slowly looked up. It's very smooth. Apex is the best, Sasha chirped. Victor, of course, only flies the best. He's one of their biggest clients. They treat him like royalty. We, she corrected herself, get everything we want. Ilara's gaze was unsettling. It wasn't fearful or angry. It was analytical, as if Sasha were an insect under a microscope. That must be very convenient for you, Ilara finally said. Oh, it is, Sasha purred. It's amazing what men will do for the women they are truly passionate about. All of this, she gestured around the cabin. This is what true love looks like. Not whatever you have. A piece of paper, a shared Christmas card list. It's also quaint. Sasha was trying to provoke her. A single tear, a tremor in her voice. Anything. Ilara simply marked her page. Are you insecure, Sasha? Sasha physically recoiled. What? I have everything. Look at me. Look at you. Who on this plane looks insecure? People who are secure don't need to announce that they're winning, Ilara said, her voice still quiet, but with a new, sharp edge that hadn't been on the tarmac. They simply win. You seem to be trying very hard to convince yourself of something. Sasha's face flushed with anger. You pathetic, dried-up relic! You think you're wise? You're a joke! You're a doormat! Victor is wiping his feet on you, and you're sitting there, reading a book. I am the future, Sasha hissed, losing her composure, her voice rising above the engine hum. I'm who he is building a life with. You're just the past he's too lazy to divorce. Victor, asleep in the front of the cabin, stirred. Sasha, what's going on back there? Sasha shot a look of pure hatred at Ilara, then regained her composure, strutting back to her seat. Nothing, darling. Just getting a drink. The guest was napping. She sat, fuming. The little beige mouse had claws. The audacity of her. Sasha stewed in her seat, her victory on the tarmac now feeling hollow. She needed to reassert her dominance, to prove to Alara and Victor who was truly in charge. And she knew exactly how to do it. 3. The final demand and the revelation. Over the next 2 hours, Sasha brooded. She drank 2 more glasses of champagne, the bubbles doing little to soothe the simmering indignation. She observed the cabin crew. There were 2 attendants in the main cabin, Charlotte and a younger man named Mark. They were ghosts in impeccable uniforms, efficient, polite, and invisible. But Sasha started noticing something, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in their behavior. When Sasha had snapped her fingers for another glass, a habit she'd picked up, believing it made her look authoritative, Charlotte's smile had strained for a fraction of a second before complying. When Victor had tossed his used napkin onto the floor, Mark had picked it up with a smile. But their eyes were vacant. Their deference was professional, but it felt brittle, forced. Then Anakyo watched as Charlotte approached Alara's seat in the back. Sasha had to crane her neck to see. Charlotte leaned down, not with the efficient, brisk posture she used with Sasha, but with a genuine, soft incline. "Ms. H," Charlotte said, her voice too low for Sasha to catch the words, but the tone was entirely different. It was soft, respectful. Sasha saw Alara smile, a small, genuine smile, and nod, gesturing to her empty water glass. Charlotte returned a moment later, not with a standard plastic bottle, but with a tall glass of what looked like sparkling water and a slice of lime, served on a tiny linen-wrapped tray. Sasha's eyes narrowed. "Ms. H? What kind of nickname was that?" It sounded familiar and deferential. Not the compassionate kind of nickname you give the sad wife. It sounded like respect. Victor was back on the phone, his voice tight. "I don't care what the margin call is. Move the funds from the Singapore account. Just fix it, damn you." He looked stressed, with dark circles under his eyes that his tan couldn't hide. "Trouble in paradise, darling?" Sasha asked, running her foot up his leg. "Nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart," he said, stroking her knee distractedly. "Just market fluctuations." He no longer looked like the confident shark she had known. He looked desperate. Sasha decided to test a theory. She pressed the call button. Charlotte instantly appeared. "Yes, Ms. Cross? I've decided I want to celebrate. We're almost in St. Bart's." "Victor, darling," she cooed. "We should have a proper toast." Victor, who had just closed his laptop with a stressed sigh, looked grateful for the distraction. "Good idea, darling. Whatever you want." Sasha turned to Charlotte, a cunning, victorious smile on her face. "I want the 1998 Dom Perignon Rosé Gold. I know you have it. Victor has had it on this plane before." This was her checkmate. The 98 Rosé Gold was a legendary Omwe ultra-rare vintage, costing tens of thousands of pounds a bottle. To demand it was not a request. It was a statement of status. It was the kind of thing only a king like Victor could command. Charlotte's professional smile didn't just strain. It vanished. For a split second, she looked frightened. Then the mask returned. "The 1998 Dom Perignon Rosé Gold," Charlotte repeated slowly, as if engraving it into memory. "An excellent choice, Ms. Cross. Please wait one moment." She disappeared into the galley. A minute passed. Then 2. Sasha's smile began to fade. What was taking so long? Was she arguing with the pilot about it? Charlotte reappeared from the galley. She came back empty-handed. "Ms. Cross," Charlotte began, her voice a low, formal tone. "I'm afraid the 1998 Dom Perignon Rosé Gold is unavailable for service." Sasha's blood ran cold. Then it boiled. "Unavailable? What do you mean it's unavailable? I just told you, Victor has it all the time." My apologies, but that specific bottle is part of a private manifest. It is allocated. Allocated? Allocated to whom? Sasha demanded, her voice rising to a shriek. We are the only passengers. Are you telling me the pilots are drinking it? Victor, seeing his prize and his status slipping away, sat bolt upright. His industry titan voice returned. Now you listen here, Charlotte. I am paying over £100,000 for this flight. If my guest wants that champagne, she gets it. I don't care what manifest it's on. Go and get it. That is a command. Charlotte did not rush. She stood her ground, her hands clasped in front of her. Sir, she said, addressing Victor directly, her voice respectful but firm as iron. I cannot. That bottle was provided by special request of the owner. It is not part of the standard client cellar. It is from the owner's personal stock, and it is reserved. Sasha burst into a high, hysterical laugh. The owner? You think the owner is on this flight? Is he hiding in the cockpit? Victor looked furious. This is an outrage. I am Victor Thorne. I spend millions with this company. I am their owner, for all intents and purposes. Who the hell on this plane is more important than me? Charlotte's gaze was steady. She did not blink. I am very sorry, Mr. Thorne, but my instructions are clear. The owner's private stock is unavailable. This is the worst service I have ever had, Sasha screamed, hitting the armrest. I am going to have you fired. I'm going to tell Victor to buy this entire pathetic airline and fire every single one of you. Sasha, shut up, Victor snapped, his face pale. He knew he'd been rebuffed, and it made him look weak. He turned back to Charlotte. This is unacceptable. Get me your manager. I am the chief flight coordinator, sir. There is no one else to speak to, Charlotte said. I can offer you our excellent 2000 Dom Perignon instead, and you can't have it. The voice wasn't Charlotte's. It was quiet. It was clear. And it came from the back of the plane. Sasha, Victor, and Charlotte spun around. Ilara Hayes had set her book down on her lap. She was looking at them, her expression no longer passive or analytical. It was one of mild annoyance, as if they were toddlers throwing a tantrum. What did you say? Sasha whispered, her throat suddenly dry. Ilara unbuckled her seatbelt. She stood up. And for the first time, Sasha noticed she wasn't disheveled. The cashmere she now saw was Loro Piana. The simple loafers were hand-stitched Brunello Cucinelli. The beige outfit likely cost more than Sasha's entire crimson ensemble. Ilara walked slowly down the aisle, her movements fluid and self-assured. She stopped beside Charlotte, standing shoulder to shoulder with the flight coordinator. She looked at Sasha, then at her husband. I said, Ilara repeated, her voice perfectly modulated. You can't have it. Because, as Charlotte correctly stated, it is mine. The silence in the cabin was absolute. Victor stared, his mouth slightly open. Ilara, what? What are you talking about? It's yours? Did you steal it from the galley? Sasha let out a choked sound, a cross between a laugh and a gasp. Oh my God, are you a kleptomaniac? Now you're stealing champagne? This is a new low, even for you. Ilara simply raised an eyebrow. She did not look at Sasha. She didn't even look at Victor. She looked at Charlotte. Charlotte, Ilara said, her voice warm. You handled that beautifully, but I think you can stop referring to me as Ms. H now. It was a charming code, but I believe the game is over. Charlotte's icy professional mask melted, replaced by a look of deep, genuine respect. Yes, Mrs. Thorne, my apologies. I was only trying to maintain protocol as you requested. You did so perfectly, Ilara said. She then turned her steady, blue-eyed gaze onto her husband. Victor, she said, and the name sounded new on her tongue. It was not the whisper of a wife. It was the crisp, clear pronouncement of a CEO. You have been flying with Apex Air Charter for 3 years. You have spent, as you rightly pointed out, millions of pounds. And in all that time, You never bothered to ask what the A or the H stood for in our parent company, Hale Group Global. Victor's face was ashen. What? What are you talking about? H Group. That's Holdings. H Group Holdings. No, Victor, Ilara said quietly. It is not. The H Group was founded by my mother, Helena. And Apex? That was my pet project. My father always loved the stars. The Apex is the highest point. I founded this airline 10 years ago, before I even met you, as a small tribute to him. She ran a hand over the polished walnut bulkhead. I designed this very interior. I chose the leather. I selected the woods. And I personally curate the owner's private wine list. She looked at Sasha, whose face had gone from crimson rage to waxy, chalky white. The 1998 Dom Perignon Rosé Gold, Ilara said, was a gift from my father the day we secured our first G5. There is exactly one bottle on this plane, and I assure you, you will not be drinking it. Sasha slumped back in her seat, her entire body numb. No, that's not possible. You're into gardening clubs. Yes, Ilara nodded. I am. I'm the director of the Kew Gardens Endowment Fund. I'm also a board member for the National Gallery. And I am the sole 100% owner of Apex Air Charter and its parent company, Hale Group Global, which, among other things, owns the building your office is in. Victor. Victor finally found his voice. It was a choked whisper. Ilara, why? Why didn't I know? You always said you were just philanthropic. You never asked, Ilara said, a deep, sorrowful sadness entering her voice for the first time. You met me at a charity ball. You saw my simple clothes. You saw my family's old name. And you assumed I was simply old money. You assumed I was a relic. A simple, quiet accessory you could use to look respectable, while you behaved like this. She gestured from Sasha to Victor. Victor stammered, his mind visibly racing, trying to recalculate decades of assumptions. Ilara, darling, listen to me. This, he gestured wildly at Sasha. This is nothing. This is a mistake, a distraction. You're my wife. I love you. Sasha felt the last breath leave her lungs. She was the one being discarded. She was the extra baggage. Get off me, Victor, Ilara said, pulling away from his grasping hands in revulsion. It's too late for that. It has been too late for a very long time. Did you really think I was so quiet? So simple? So disheveled? She was using Sasha's insults. I let you think that, Ilara continued, her voice like ice. I let you think I was happily knitting and gardening while you played the big important man. It was a test of your character. And you have failed, Victor. Not only have you failed so spectacularly that you will be a case study in business schools for decades. She took another sip of her champagne. While you were buying Prada, she glanced at Sasha's dress, and leveraging company assets for your little affair, I was moving quietly. Every asset you thought you had access to was systematically ring-fenced. The accounts you've been draining? They were decoys I set up 6 months ago, filled with enough money to keep you busy and provide a very clear, damning paper trail of embezzlement for the serious fraud office. An FO. The real money, my father's money, my mother's money, has been in a blind trust since the day we married. A trust, I might add, to which you have no legal claim, especially not after, well, all this. Victor had stumbled back into his seat. He was breathing heavily. You set a trap for me. No, Ilara said. You built the cage, Victor. I just let you lock yourself inside. Suddenly, Sasha, in a fit of pure, unadulterated panic, realized her own position. Her billionaire boyfriend was not only not a billionaire, he was ruined. He was a criminal. And she had just spent 5 hours insulting the actual billionaire. "Wait! Wait!" Sasha shrieked, standing up. This isn't my fault. He told me you were a nobody. He lied to me. I'm a victim here too." She looked at Alara, eyes wide with desperation. "Please, I didn't know. You're incredible. What you did, it's genius. We should be friends." Alara looked at Sasha, and for the first time, Sasha saw what she had mistaken for tranquility and beige. It wasn't weakness. It was stillness, a deep, cold, absolute power. "Friends," Alara replied, a small, joyless smile touching her lips. "I think not. You are not a victim, Sasha. You are a co-conspirator. You knew he was a married man. You joyfully participated in his humiliation of me. You drank his champagne, wore his clothes, and sat on my plane, insulting me. You didn't care if it was right or wrong. You only cared that you were winning. And now you've lost." The intercom crackled. It was Charlotte's voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our initial descent. However, there has been a change to our flight plan. We will not be landing in St. Bart's. We will be landing at Teterboro Airport, New Jersey. We will be on the ground in approximately 20 minutes." Sasha's head snapped to the window. The endless blue of the ocean was gone. Beneath them, shrouded in evening haze, was the distinctive coastline of Long Island Sound. They weren't in the Caribbean. They had simply flown a big, pointless circle. "What? New York?" Sasha shrieked. "We flew back to New York. We didn't go anywhere." "Oh, we went somewhere," Alara said, walking back to her seat, her original seat in the back. "We flew over international waters, far enough for my legal team to file the injunctions, freeze your accounts, and remove you from the company board without you being able to interfere. And now, we're home." Victor was rocking back and forth, muttering to himself. "My office, the building, oh God, the funds. Smith, I have to call Smith." He fumbled for his satellite phone. "I wouldn't bother," Alara called from the back. "Mr. Smith has been cooperating with my forensic accounting team for 3 weeks. He's the one who gave us the final piece of evidence. He's probably signing a witness protection agreement as we speak." Victor's hand froze. He looked at the phone in his hand as if it were a snake. His entire world, his empire, his mistress, his wife. It had all been an illusion orchestrated by the one person he had never, ever taken seriously. 4. The meaningful ending. The final humiliation. The descent was heavy with silence, thicker than the clouds they passed through. The luxurious cabin, so recently the stage for Sasha's triumph, had become a soundproof tomb. The Gulfstream G700 touched down on the Teterboro runway with a barely perceptible bump. The landing was, as always, incredibly smooth, but the bump of the wheels on the tarmac felt like a final judgment. The plane taxied not to the elegant private terminal, but to a remote, isolated corner of the airfield. The engine shut down. The sudden, enveloping silence was louder than any of Victor's ravings. "Thank you for flying with Apex Air Charter." Charlotte's voice came over the intercom, her tone, once again, bright and professional. "Local time is 4:52 p.m. Please remain seated until the cabin door is opened." In the back, Alara placed her bookmark in her book and closed it. She stood up, smoothing her Loro Piana jacket, her movements unhurried. The cabin door hissed open. The cold, damp air of a New Jersey autumn evening rushed in. It revealed not a red carpet, but a set of metal stairs, the gray tarmac, and 2 men in dark, conservative suits. They looked like lawyers, or perhaps something more. Standing a few feet behind them was a uniformed officer of the Port Authority Police. Alara walked to the front of the plane. She passed Victor's seat. He didn't look up. She paused at Sasha's row. Sasha looked up, her face a ruin. Her perfectly applied makeup was now a tear-streaked mess. Her crimson dress felt cheap and loud. "What? What's going to happen to me?" Sasha whispered, the words catching in her dry throat. Ilara looked at her. Her expression was not one of anger or even triumph. It was of cold, detached pity, the look one might give a particularly foolish insect. "That, Sasha, is no longer my concern," Ilara said, her voice quiet, but with absolute finality. "You saw this as a game of winning, and you hitched yourself to the man you thought was the winner. My advice, for what it's worth, next time you should have brought your own parachute." She then addressed Victor. "Victor." He flinched, a small, pathetic motion. "My lawyers will notify you at... well, I suppose they will notify you at the police station. They will be processing the divorce and the criminal complaint for embezzlement and wire fraud. I have been advised for legal reasons not to speak to you again. Goodbye." Ilara turned and walked toward the open door, an image of tranquil control. She nodded to the men in suits, who parted for her like the sea. "Ms. H," one of them said, his voice low and respectful. "The car is ready." "Thank you, Robert," she replied. She descended the steps, her sensible loafers making a soft, firm sound on the metal. She never looked back. A black Mercedes S-Class, discreet, a car that whispered power rather than yelling for attention, pulled up. Robert opened the door for her. She got in, and the car drove away, disappearing around the side of a hangar. Back on the plane, the two men in suits ascended, their large bodies filling the threshold, blocking the light. The uniformed officer remained at the foot of the stairs. "Mr. Victor Thorne?" the taller one asked. It was not a question. Victor only nodded, a broken man, his head sinking onto his chest. "You need to come with us. We have a warrant for your arrest for multiple counts of wire fraud and embezzlement." Victor got to his feet, but he seemed to be moving through water. He was stumbling, his legs weak. The officer climbed into the cabin, holding a pair of handcuffs. Sasha watched, frozen, as the officer motioned for Victor to turn around. The man she had called her Titan, her king, the shark she had so admired, put his hands behind his back without a word. The sharp metallic click, click, click of the cuffs closing was the only sound. He was led down the aisle, his expensive Zegna suit now hopelessly wrinkled, his head bowed in utter defeat. Sasha was left alone in the cabin with Charlotte. Charlotte began to walk through the cabin, collecting the empty champagne glasses, her expression perfectly neutral. "Well," Sasha said, her voice trembling as she tried to muster a final scrap of dignity. "I guess I'll just call an Uber." She reached for her phone, a desperate attempt to grasp her last connection to the world. Charlotte paused her collection and looked at her. Her professional smile was gone, and her eyes were as cold and gray as the tarmac outside. "I'm afraid not, Ms. Cross," Charlotte said, her voice stripped of all pretense of service. "Your name was on the flight manifest as a guest of Mr. Thorne, and since he has just been arrested, and his account with Apex Air Charter is permanently closed, effective immediately, you are now considered an unauthorized passenger." An unauthorized passenger," Sasha repeated, the words feeling like a slap. "But I have to go home. You can't just leave me here." "I'm sure you do, Miss Cross," Charlotte said, "but you will not be exiting via the private terminal. That access is reserved for our clients. You will be escorted by airport security through the main TSA checkpoint. From there, you are on your own." Charlotte pointed to the open door, where a different, disgruntled-looking airport security guard was now waiting. Expulsion. This was the final humiliation. Not only was she being kicked off the plane, she was being kicked out of the world she had tried so hard to infiltrate. Sasha walked, head bowed, out of the aircraft, the cold air hitting her face. Her phone vibrated in her hand. It was an alert from her Instagram. The story she had posted hours ago, the one of her and Victor, the one that called Alara extra baggage, was suddenly, inexplicably, swamped with comments. Her world had ended, not with a bang, but with the quiet, satisfied click of a car door as the quiet wife drove away. Alara proved that true power doesn't need to be loud. She drove away with her dignity, her company, and her freedom, while Sasha and Victor were left only with the consequences of their own actions. V. Conclusion and morale. What did you think of Alara's ultimate power move? Have you ever seen karma delivered so perfectly? Tell us your take in the comments. If you loved this story of justice and unexpected twists, please hit the like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama every week. We appreciate your support. The Aftershocks and the Final Price. The Aftershocks and the Alara Standard, 3 years later. 3 years had passed since the Gulfstream GRP landed at Teterboro Airport. For Victor Thorne, the fallout was complete and brutal. He was convicted of multiple fraud and embezzlement charges stemming directly from the paper trail Alara had meticulously prepared. His expensive Zegna suit was replaced by prison standard issue. He lost the Manhattan penthouse, the sports car, and every asset he had leveraged for his facade of success. Hale Group Global's civil suit ensured he was left with nothing but his debt. Alara's focus, however, was forward. She never attended the trial. She had already moved past Victor. Her commitment was to the firm she had rescued. At Apex Air Charter, the quiet revolution was complete. Alara personally promoted Charlotte, the chief flight coordinator, to Director of Global Service Integrity, and Mark, the flight attendant, to head of training. Their loyalty and integrity under pressure became the company standard. The culture shifted from servicing the loudest, most arrogant clients to prioritizing professionalism and ethical conduct, a stark contrast to the values Victor represented. "We don't sell luxury, we sell certainty," Alara stated in her first company-wide address. "We do not tolerate clients who abuse our staff or compromise our integrity. If a client mistakes our service for servitude, they will be liquidated." This became known in the industry as the Alara Standard, a brutal but effective mandate that quickly made Apex Air Charter the most respected, and paradoxically, even more exclusive service in the world. Clients understood. You had to behave. Alara herself spent her time chairing the Kew Gardens Endowment and quietly funding STEM programs for young women in engineering. Her personal fortune was untouched, and her identity was secure. She had weaponized her intelligence and then used the resulting power to build a better system. The final reflection, 5 years later. 5 years after being ejected from the private terminal, Sasha Cross sat in a small, windowless office at a high-street travel agency in a mid-level London suburb. The crimson Prada was long gone, replaced by a polyester uniform. Her job was booking economy flights and packages to the Canary Islands, a cruel, constant reminder of the paradise she had almost touched. She was no longer the dazzling, arrogant predator. Her humiliation had been complete. The Instagram story, the viral nature of the downfall, had instantly blacklisted her from the luxury sector. She was forced to take an honest job, one that paid just enough for her tiny flat and basic necessities. One dreary Wednesday afternoon, she took a phone call. "Thank you for calling Skyjet Travel. My name is Sarah. How may I help you?" "Yes, I need to charter a private jet." The voice on the line was precise, expensive, and familiar. "I require a heavy-lift jet for immediate transfer from London City to Geneva. I've heard the service from Apex Air Charter is unmatched." Sasha froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Apex Air Charter. Apex. Yes, sir, Sasha stammered, her voice thin. They are highly exclusive. I would need to check their manifest and client requirements. They are known for vetting clients quite rigorously. I am aware, the client said, a hint of impatience in his voice. The account name is Hale Group Global. You may check the owner's credentials. Sasha gripped her pen so tightly the plastic cracked. She pulled up the Apex Air Charter portal, a system she despised, but had to use. She clicked the executive account verification. She saw the familiar corporate logo and the name of the primary contact, Ilara Hayes. She looked at the screen, then at her own trembling hand. 5 years. She had spent 5 years blaming Victor, blaming the universe, blaming her bad luck. But in this moment, seeing Ilara's name next to the company she had built, Sasha finally saw the truth with terrifying clarity. Ilara hadn't just defeated her and Victor. Ilara had given Sasha exactly what she deserved. A small, honest life defined by competency, not complicity. Sasha closed her eyes for a brief moment. She processed the charter request clinically, her professionalism overriding her shame. She secured the client the jet, quoted the price, and completed the booking flawlessly. Your Apex Air Charter flight is confirmed, sir, Sasha concluded, her voice steady. Thank you for choosing Skyjet Travel. She hung up the phone. She looked at the image of the Apex logo on her screen, the emblem of the true queen. There was no anger left, only a cold, profound understanding. She wasn't small, Sasha whispered to the empty office. I was just looking at the wrong numbers. Her world hadn't crumbled because she chose the wrong man. Her world crumbled because she mistook quiet intelligence for insignificance, the costliest calculation error of her life. She picked up the phone, ready for the next call, a successful, if sober, saleswoman in a world she no longer hated, because she finally understood how to earn her place in it. The Ghost in Beige, the $70 million silent flight of vengeance, attention, destiny seekers. Imagine for a moment that life doesn't just slam a door on you, it delivers a punch to the face. Like and subscribe right now because this story is about more than just a plane. It's about the quiet strength, the hidden pain, and the incredible resurrection that blooms when no one is watching. What would you do if the person who swore to love you erased you from their existence, laughed at your dreams, and left you with the ashes of what was once yours? Would you surrender, or would you light a flame so intense the whole world would have to look? Prepare for a takeoff that will leave you breathless. Hit the notification bell to witness the ultimate corporate karma. The Invisible Woman. She was invisible. To her ex-husband, Dr. Eleanor Vance was just a ghost in a practical cardigan, a relic of a life he'd upgraded from. He stood in the sterile luxury of the Boston Executive FBO VIP lounge, laughing at her. He mocked her failure, her discreet existence. He had the new wife, the new company, the new life. Eleanor had a complimentary cup of coffee, but in 10 minutes, the whine of a $70 million jet engine would change everything. The laughter would die in his throat, and he would finally learn who she really was. The VIP lounge of the Hanscom Field Executive FBO hummed with a quiet, expensive energy. It was a sound Eleanor had never quite gotten used to, the sound of lives lived at a different altitude. The scent of dark roast coffee and polished mahogany hung in the air, a stark contrast to the small one-bedroom apartment in Cambridge she had called home for the last 18 months. She sat on a plush leather armchair with her back stiff, tracing the rim of a porcelain mug with a nervous finger. Her oatmeal-colored cardigan felt like burlap in a room draped in cashmere and bespoke suits. Today was the day. The culmination of 6 more days of incessant, silent, heartbreaking work. The day her new life would either begin or completely crumble. She was waiting for a flight, not a commercial one, not even a first-class seat. She was waiting for a GDT-50ER, or so the email stated. The idea was so preposterous, she kept checking the printed confirmation in her plain cloth tote bag, half expecting a security guard to tap her on the shoulder and direct her to the main terminal where she belonged. Her divorce from Mr. Marcus Sterling had been a masterclass in public humiliation. He hadn't just left her, he had systematically erased her. They had been college sweethearts, the classic pair. He, the charismatic business major, and she, the brilliant introverted computer scientist. Together, they founded Helios AI, a company built entirely on her groundbreaking machine learning algorithm. Eleanor had been the architect, the engineer, the very soul of the company. Marcus had been the face. He charmed investors, gave TED Talks about their work, and graced the covers of business magazines. Then came Ms. Tiffany Bloom. Tiffany was a decade younger, a social media influencer, whose only contribution to society seemed to be posting pictures of expensive things. Marcus, in the throes of a spectacular midlife crisis, decided Tiffany was the upgrade he deserved. The divorce was brutal. Marcus's legal team, funded by the company she built, painted her as a bitter, unsupportive, and replaceable cog in the machine. They argued that her algorithm, while clever, was only one piece of the puzzle. The real value, they claimed, lay in Marcus's vision and brand building. In the end, he kept the company, the house in the Hamptons, the art collection, and the network. Eleanor was left with a modest cash settlement and a single, obscure patent she had registered under her maiden name, Vance, an experimental offshoot of her core algorithm that Marcus's lawyers had deemed academically interesting, but commercially useless. They had left it to her out of pity, a crumb from the table. She had spent the last of her savings just to survive, and invested the rest in a rented server and endless nights of coding. That useless patent, it turned out, was not useless at all. It was the key. While Marcus was busy running Helios AI into the ground with flashy, unfocused projects, Eleanor had been in her small apartment, cultivating that single patent into something revolutionary. She had built a new company from the ashes, Phoenix Systems, a name she chose one night fueled by desperation and black coffee. For 6 months, she had been in top-secret negotiations with Astrodynamics, a global tech conglomerate led by the elusive and legendary Mr. Julian Stone. They weren't just interested. They were stunned. Her new platform could solve a problem in global logistics that had baffled the industry for a decade. The deal was astounding, a life-changing acquisition that would make her one of the most influential figures in technology. Today, Astrodynamics was flying her to their headquarters in Geneva to sign the final papers. The nerves in her stomach were real. This was it. She checked her simple Timex watch, a practical gift from her late father, and took a small sip of lukewarm water. She just had to wait. She just had to get on that plane. The encounter. She closed her eyes for a brief second, trying to center herself, trying to silence the ghosts of Marcus's voice in her head, the voice that still whispered she was nothing without him. And that's when, naturally, she heard his. Well, 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 look what the cat dragged in. Eleanor's eyes snapped open, her blood running cold. Standing less than 10 feet away, flanked by gleaming Rimowa luggage, was Marcus Sterling. He looked exactly the same, offensively handsome, wearing a bespoke Italian suit that probably cost more than her apartment's down payment, and radiating an aura of smug, undeserved superiority. His hair was perfectly slicked, his smile a bright, predatory flash, and clinging to his arm, looking like a high-fashion flamingo, was Tiffany. She was wrapped in a pink Balenciaga tracksuit, her lips plumped to comical proportions, and her large, empty eyes scanned the room with a look of profound boredom. Eleanor's first instinct was to shrink, to disappear into the beige upholstery of the chair. A flush of shame crept up her neck. Of all the places, of all the times, Marcus strolled over, Tiffany trailing behind him like an expensive accessory. He stopped directly in front of her chair, forcing her to look up at him. Eleanor, he said, drawing out the name, his voice dripping with condescending amusement. I have to say, I'm impressed. This is the invitation-only VIP lounge. Did you get lost on the way to the food court? Tiffany let out a sharp, high-pitched giggle. Ricky, don't be mean. Maybe she's cleaning here now. It's good, honest work. Eleanor's hands clenched in her lap. She refused to give them the satisfaction of a response. She just looked at him, her expression neutral, though inside, her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Always the quiet little mouse, aren't you? Look at you, Eleanor. The same bland clothes. Is life not treating you well after me? He leaned down, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, yet still loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. Still living in that sad little flat in Alston? I saw the pictures. Very cozy. He was baiting her. He had always been a bully, someone who could only feel large by making others feel small. And she had always been his favorite target. We, he said, gesturing dramatically between himself and Tiffany, are heading to Aspen. A little thank you from our investors. Helios is closing a massive new round of funding. We're about to go stratospheric. You probably read about it. Eleanor hadn't. The only news she followed was the quiet collapse of Helios's stock price. Public records showed the company was hemorrhaging money, burning through the goodwill she had built, and failing to innovate. Marcus was a salesman, not a builder, and he had sold a lemon. She knew from her contacts he was desperately searching for funding, not celebrating it. He was lying. as always. What about you? He pressed, enjoying his performance. What brings you to Hanscom? Meeting a new guy? Finally landed one? Let me guess. Is he a regional sales manager? A dentist? He laughed, a loud, grating sound that made a nearby woman in a Chanel suit look up in annoyance. Seriously, Eleanor, he said, the fake pity in his voice making her cringe. What are you doing here? You look completely out of place. Are you waiting for an Uber? This is not the building for that, darling. He and Tiffany laughed together. It was the sound that had haunted her nightmares, the sound of their shared betrayal. Eleanor looked at her hands, the chipped nail polish on her right index finger from an all-night coding session. She took a deep, steady breath. She had come too far to let him break her. Not here, not at a... She looked up, meeting his gaze evenly. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, but clear as a bell. I'm waiting for a flight, Marcus. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. A flight? On what? A Cessna to Provincetown? You can't even afford a first-class ticket on United anymore, let alone a seat out of Hanscom. Ricky? Tiffany whined, tugging on his arm. Stop talking to her. She's getting her little loser germs on your suit. Let's go get champagne. In a minute, darling, Marcus said, stroking her hand, his eyes still fixed on Eleanor. He couldn't stand that she wasn't crumbling. I'm fascinated. This is like watching a nature documentary. The discarded mate trying to come back to the watering hole. Eleanor stood up. She was 5'5", and Marcus towered over her. But by standing, she reclaimed a small piece of her dignity. She picked up her simple cloth tote bag, her knuckles white. You should go, Marcus. Your champagne is waiting. Oh, so brave now, he sneered. Where was this backbone when we were married? Oh, wait, I remember. You didn't have one. You were just the code monkey in the basement. I built that company, Eleanor. I built it. And you? You are just a footnote. A footnote, Eleanor repeated, the words tasting like ash. That's right. And now, if you'll excuse us, he said, taking Tiffany's arm again. We have to prepare for our flight. Our jet is a beauty. A Citation Latitude brand new. He started to lead Tiffany away, but paused, looking over his shoulder for a final blow. It's a shame, really. You had so much potential, but you needed me to make any of it matter. And now, look at you. He gestured back at the luxurious lounge. A mouse trying to play a lion. It's just sad. He turned and walked away, his laughter echoing back to her. Eleanor sank back into the chair, her legs trembling. The cruelty was so familiar, so precise. He knew exactly where to cut. For one terrifying second, she believed him. She felt small. She felt worthless. She felt like the footnote he had declared she was. 3. The quiet roar. The sting of Marcus's words sent her spiraling back. She recalled the cramped, fluorescent-lit computer lab at MIT where they first met. She had been a graduate student, immersed in a complex thesis on neural networks. He had been a business student, sweeping the campus with his charm and dazzling smile. He had approached her, not with the awkwardness of her engineering peers, but with a confident, polished interest. I heard you're the one who can actually make this stuff work, he had said, gesturing at her screen full of code. He hadn't been wrong. Eleanor lived in a world of logic, a world where code was poetry, and algorithms were a language she spoke more fluently than English. Marcus, she learned, lived in a world of presentations, contacts, and narratives. He didn't understand her work, not really, but he understood immediately its value. We're a team, he used to say, when his eyes were still genuine. You're the engine, I'm the steering wheel. We'll go far. And they did. She dropped her PhD to co-found Helios AI. They married in a simple courthouse ceremony. The first 2 years were a blur of sleepless nights, cheap pizza, and the thrill of creation. Eleanor coded, and Marcus presented her algorithm, which could predict consumer behavior with terrifying accuracy. It was their golden goose. They secured funding, and then more funding. The shift in Marcus was gradual, then sudden. The steering wheel began to believe he was the whole car. He began to refer to her work as our work, then my work. He was the one on stage, the one giving interviews. Eleanor, who hated the spotlight, was content to remain in the background, to build, to solve. She was the CTO, but in board meetings, Marcus would often cut her off. "Eleanor's getting into the weeds," he'd laugh. "Let me give you the big picture." He convinced her to put most of their joint assets into Helios AI stock, all under a complex holding partnership that he controlled. "It's smarter for tax purposes," he had assured her. She, who could model quantum data, found herself bewildered by the corporate legal jargon and trusted him. It was a devastating mistake. The patent she had retained was a fluke. It was for a side project, an idea she'd had about using her AI for predictive logistics instead of human behavior. She had filed it herself one weekend, paying the small fee with her personal credit card. She had told Marcus about it, and he had dismissed it. Logistics? Boring. Stick to what makes money, Elle. Stick to what we know. Then came the first signs of his infidelity. The late nights he couldn't explain. The scent of a perfume that wasn't hers. The sudden obsessive focus on his appearance. When she finally confronted him, finding a hotel receipt in his suit pocket, he didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "It just happened, Eleanor," he had said, speaking as if about the weather. "Tiffany, she understands the pressure I'm under. She supports my vision." "And I don't?" Eleanor had whispered, feeling the floor open beneath her feet. "I wrote the vision, Marcus." "You wrote the code," he had snapped back, the mask of the charming husband falling away to reveal the cold, ruthless man beneath. "The code is replaceable. I am not. You are holding me back, Eleanor. You are a drag." The divorce was his final, brutal masterpiece. His lawyers, the best money could buy, systematically dismantled her contributions. They produced emails where Marcus directed her research. He had only forwarded articles. They highlighted her lack of public appearances as proof of her minor role. She was portrayed as a disgruntled employee, not a co-founder. When it came to the useless patent, Marcus's lawyer had literally scoffed in the deposition. "Ms. Hayes is welcome to her little academic project. We, on the other hand, will keep the multi-million-dollar company." Heartbroken and financially depleted by her own legal fees, Eleanor had no more fight left. She signed the papers, left the courthouse, took a cab to a small sublet apartment. And for the first time in her life, she didn't just cry. She grieved. She screamed into a pillow until her throat was raw, mourning the loss of her husband, her company, and her life's work. A full week passed before she opened her laptop. When she did, she saw the file containing the patent. Boring, he had called it. She opened it, her eyes scanning the complex mathematical proofs she had written. A slow, cold anger began to burn away the hurt. He was wrong. It wasn't boring. It was brilliant. And Marcus, in his infinite arrogance, had left her with the one thing that could destroy him. He had taken the engine, yes, but she had kept the blueprint for a reactor. Viewer interaction, question. The moment Eleanor realized her useless patent was actually a blueprint for a reactor, what do you think was her first thought? Revenge? Just survival? Share your thoughts below. 4. The arrival. A new voice, sharp and professional, interrupted her memory. "Ma'am, Ms. Hayes." Eleanor blinked, the painful past receding. The lounge attendant, a young woman with a kind smile, stood by her. "Excuse me, Ms. Hayes, but I have an update on your flight." "Eleanor!" Her stomach clenched. A delay. A cancellation. They changed their minds. Marcus, who had been holding court by the espresso machine, turned to watch, a smirk already on his face. He was waiting for the final humiliation, the moment the mouse was told to leave the room. "Yes?" Eleanor said, her voice barely a whisper. "Your aircraft has just landed," the attendant said, checking her tablet. "It's taxiing to the ramp now. The crew will be ready to welcome you aboard in approximately 15 minutes. Would you like a fresh coffee while you wait?" Eleanor stared at her. It's here?" "Yes, ma'am. Right on schedule." The attendant smiled and walked away. Eleanor looked across the lounge. Marcus's smile had faltered. He looked confused. She could see the gears turning in his head. She's not being kicked out. Her flight is real. He exchanged a puzzled look with Tiffany, who merely shrugged and took a selfie. Eleanor turned to look out the massive, floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the tarmac. And her heart didn't just stop. It felt like it reset. Before the attendant's words had fully registered, Marcus was already moving. The idea that Eleanor could have anything he didn't, anything he hadn't approved of or was unaware of, was an offense to his entire sense of self. He left Tiffany by the coffee bar and returned to Eleanor's chair. His smile was gone, replaced by a tight, quizzical frown. "What is this, Eleanor? Did you cash in your pension for a one-way ticket on a charter, running away?" "I told you, Marcus, I'm waiting for a flight." "Yes, but what flight? You don't have this kind of money. I know what you have. I know what I left you. It wasn't enough for a Costco membership, let alone a private jet." "Marcus," Eleanor said, her voice low and steady. "This does not concern you." "Everything you do concerns me," he shot back, his voice rising. "You still used my last name. Oh, wait. You went back to Vance. Smart. Wouldn't want to tarnish the Sterling brand." "Ricky," Tiffany called, clip-clopping closer in her stiletto boots. "What's taking you so long? Our pilots are here. They're waiting." She held up her phone, showing a text message. "The citation is ready." Marcus glanced at his watch, then back at Eleanor. He couldn't leave, not without solving this enigma, not without re-establishing his dominance. "A citation latitude," he told Eleanor, as if she should be impressed. "Best in class. I'm sure your flight," he air-quoted, "will be very comfortable. Does it have propellers? Do they give you a bag of peanuts?" He laughed. It was the laugh she hated. The laugh he had used in the lawyer's office. The laugh he had used in their bedroom when he told her she was a drag. It was loud, designed to draw attention, to make her the center of a humiliating show. And it worked. The other occupants of the lounge, who had been politely ignoring them, were now watching. They saw a man in a Zegna suit and a younger woman in Balenciaga, laughing at a plain woman in a beige cardigan. The story wrote itself. She was the poor relation, the ex-wife, the charity case. "Look at her, Tiffany," Marcus said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "She's actually blushing. She's embarrassed." "It's okay, Eleanor. We've all been there." "Well, not here," he gestured at the lounge. "But you know, bad luck. Maybe I can help you out. I could offer you a job. Helios is expanding. We could probably use a junior coder, or someone to fetch coffee." "You were always good at that." The lounge fell silent, save for Marcus's mocking laughter. Eleanor felt the stares of the other passengers like physical blows. A man in a pinstripe suit shook his head, with a look of pity before returning to his spreadsheet. Eleanor's face was burning, but not with shame. It was with a rage so pure and cold that it sharpened her senses. She could hear the whir of the ventilation, the soft click of Tiffany's phone as she filmed this, and faintly, the distant thrum of a taxiing jet engine. She stood up again, her spine as straight as a steel rod. "You are right about one thing, Marcus," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. His smirk widened. "Oh yeah? What's that? I'm good at getting coffee?" She picked up her own untouched mug. But I'm better at math. And you? You were always terrible at it. Marcus's face tightened. What is that supposed to mean? It means you should have read the fine print. You should have paid attention in class. You took the house, right? The money and the company. You took the shell, Marcus. But you forgot the one thing that made it run. He stared at her, the laughter finally dying in his throat. He had no idea what she was talking about. His arrogance had blinded him. He truly believed he was the genius. You are pathetic, he finally spat out, resorting to his old insults. Delusional. You're sitting here, probably on a friends and family pass from some pilot you're dating, trying to lecture me about my business. You are a joke, Eleanor. You were a joke when we were married, and you're a bigger joke now. Ricky, let's go, Tiffany whined, tugging on his sleeve. You're making a scene, and not the fun kind. In a second, he hissed. He leaned in, his face inches from hers. You will always be nothing. You'll sit here and wait for your little prop plane, and I'll be in Aspen, closing a deal that will make me a billionaire. Remember that. Remember this moment, when you had a chance to be classy, and you chose to be this. He turned his back, a final, dismissive act. He and Tiffany started walking toward the glass doors leading to the tarmac, their luggage silently gliding behind them. Eleanor just stood there. She watched him go. She felt the eyes of the room on her. She was, in that moment, exactly what he had called her. The laughing stock. She closed her eyes and counted to 5, focusing on the sound of the approaching jet. It was closer now. Much closer. The $70 million verdict, the journey from her apartment floor to this FBO lounge, had been a brutal climb. After the divorce, Eleanor hadn't just lost her company. She had lost her identity. For weeks, all she had done was dissect her useless patent. Marcus's contempt for it had been his biggest blunder. He saw logistics, trucks, ships, warehouses. Eleanor saw a complex, dynamic system of predictive data, a problem far more challenging and valuable than predicting what brand of soft drink someone might buy. She had built Phoenix systems from scratch. Her office was a second-hand desk tucked into the corner of her studio apartment. Her boardroom was a local cafe with free Wi-Fi in Boston's North End. She lived on instant noodles and the small, shrinking divorce payout. Every line of code was written with a desperate, burning intensity. When the platform was stable, she didn't seek VC capital. She didn't pitch to cocky kids in hoodies. She used her last $1,000 to hire a patent lawyer and secure her new IP. Then, she drafted a single, perfect email. She didn't send it to a venture capitalist. She sent it to the personal, encrypted inbox of Julian Stone, the reclusive, visionary CEO of Astrodynamics. Stone was a legend, a man who had built a global empire on technology that actually worked, not just on hype. He was known as a ruthless but fair operator who loathed the visionary salesman type Marcus pretended to be. Eleanor didn't expect to reply. It was a shot in the dark, a final desperate flare. The response came 6 hours later. My office. Zurich. Tomorrow. Astrodynamics sent a car. They flew her, in Economy Plus, to Switzerland. She walked into a boardroom overlooking the Alps, hands trembling, clutching her laptop. Julian Stone was not a young man. He was in his 60s, with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through her. She simply opened her laptop and ran the demo. She showed him how her AI, Phoenix, could analyze global shipping routes, weather patterns, manufacturing chains, and political instability in real time, predicting and rerouting supply chains with 99.8% efficiency. It was a program that could save a company like Astrodynamics billions. Stone and his team of engineers watched silently for 2 hours. They asked her questions, not about profit margins or marketing, but about her architecture, her data modeling, her predictive decay algorithms. It was the most exciting conversation of her life. At the end, Stone closed her laptop. "Ms. Hayes," he said, his voice gravelly, "you haven't just built a better logistics program. You've solved global transport. What do you want?" "I want to build," she had said, her voice shaking but firm. "I want to see this work. And I want to make sure that Helios AI never profits from a single line of my code again." Stone nodded, a thin smile on his lips. "Helios AI, Delgado's company. Don't worry about them. They are a ghost ship. They have been trying to win our main logistics contract for a year, pitching us the same technology you invented. They just don't know how to make it work without you. They are irrelevant." The negotiations had been swift. Astrodynamics wouldn't just buy her program. They would acquire Phoenix Systems. They would make Eleanor the head of their new global logistics division. The offer was astounding. She wasn't just wealthy. This was generational wealth. This was the power to build, to create, to be secure for the rest of her life, and today was the signing. The flight to Geneva was the final step. Eleanor's thoughts snapped back to the present. Marcus and Tiffany were at the glass doors, chatting with their pilots. Their plane, the Citation Latitude, was parked on the ramp. It was a fine jet, no doubt. Functional. But it was parked right next to the aircraft that had just arrived for her. Eleanor's gaze drifted past the Citation to the machine that had just silenced the tarmac. It was magnificent. It wasn't just a plane, it was a statement. A Gulfstream G60. The world's largest, fastest, longest-range business jet. Its fuselage was sleek, pearlescent white. Its twin rear-mounted engines looked like a panther's shoulders. The Astrodynamics logo, a simple, stylized star, was painted elegantly on the tall T-tail. It made the Citation look like a child's toy. The Gulfstream's main door hissed open, and a set of polished aluminum stairs unfolded, touching the tarmac with a soft, expensive thud. Two pilots in crisp, dark uniforms emerged, followed by a flight attendant in a sleek gray suit. Marcus and Tiffany, standing by their own aircraft, had stopped talking. They were openly staring at the jet. "Oh my God," Tiffany gasped, her voice ringing out on the quiet ramp. "Who is that for? That's bigger than the one the Beckhams use." Marcus was silent, his face a mask of confusion and envy. He knew planes. He knew exactly what that aircraft represented. It was $70 million worth of power to go anywhere, anytime. It was the preferred transport of billionaires and heads of state. Back in the lounge, the kind-faced attendant walked up to Eleanor again. "Ms. Hayes, your party is here to escort you." Eleanor turned, tracing the entrance from the reception area. There was a man she recognized. Julian Stone's chief of staff, a formidable German man named Mr. Richter. He was dressed in a dark, perfectly tailored suit, his expression polite but intense. "Ms. Hayes," he said, offering a small, correct bow. "A pleasure. Mr. Stone sends his apologies. He was delayed in Singapore. He will receive you directly in Geneva. We are ready for you, if you are." "Thank you, Mr. Richter. I am ready," Eleanor said. She picked up her plain cloth tote bag. Mr. Richter gestured toward the glass doors leading to the tarmac. "After you." Eleanor began to walk. The entire room watched her. The man with the spreadsheet had lowered his newspaper entirely. Her path took her directly past the espresso bar, where Marcus and Tiffany were now hurrying back inside, their faces pictures of utter disbelief. Marcus grabbed his pilot's arm. "Is there a mistake? Who is that plane for?" The pilot merely shrugged. "No mistake, Mr. Sterling. That is the N400AD, the Astrodynamics flagship. It's here for a Ms. Eleanor Hayes." Marcus's head snapped toward Eleanor. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The blood drained from his face, leaving him a sickly pale gray. Tiffany looked from Marcus to Eleanor and back again. Eleanor! Hayes! Her? Ricky, what is going on? That is not possible. She is a nobody. Eleanor did not break stride. She walked past the espresso bar, past the staring receptionists, and toward the door. Mr. Richter held it open for her. As she passed through, she was now only feet from Marcus. He was trembling, his arrogant composure utterly shattered. Eleanor, he stammered, his voice a hoarse whisper. Eleanor, what is this? Is this a joke? Who are you with? What did you do? Eleanor paused, her hand on the door. She looked at him, not with anger, not with pity. She looked at him with the cold, distant gaze of a scientist observing a failed experiment. I told you, Marcus. You were always terrible at math. You thought you had the whole equation. You took Helios. You kept the brand. You kept the offices. But the algorithm that made it run, my algorithm, it had a fail-safe, Marcus. A back door I built just in case. The one you and your expensive lawyers never found. Marcus's eyes widened with dawning horror. What? What did you do? I did nothing, Eleanor said calmly. The code simply expired. The core logic was designed to decay and become obsolete after 2 years without my maintenance key. That was, let me see. She tapped her chin with a finger. About 6 months ago, right when your stock started to plummet, right when Astrodynamics pulled their contract bid from you. They don't like investing in ghost ships. She had just used Stone's own words. The realization hit Marcus like a physical blow. It wasn't just that she had succeeded. It was that she was the reason he was failing. His company wasn't just struggling. It was an empty shell, and she held the key. He wasn't on his way to Aspen for a new round of funding. He was here, on a chartered citation, to beg a minor investor for a bridge loan just to make payroll. And he was about to be denied. He was ruined, and she had done it. You bitch! He gasped, his voice thick with pure, impotent hatred. Tiffany only stared, her mouth agape. But Eleanor did not dignify his insult with a reply. She simply stepped away from him, slinging her cloth tote bag over her shoulder. Mr. Richter, she said, I would like to leave now. I have a signing to attend. Of course, Ms. Hayes. This way. Mr. Richter ushered her toward the door. The cool November air hit her face. It smelled of kerosene and freedom. Eleanor stepped onto the tarmac. The ground under her feet felt solid. The whine of the GDKTER's auxiliary power unit was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. It was the sound of her future. She walked across the tarmac, Mr. Richter at her side. The flight attendant waited at the foot of the stairs, smiling. Welcome aboard, Ms. Hayes. We have your preferred tea, the Silver Needle, and the brief for your flight to Geneva. Thank you, Eleanor said, her voice firm. She placed her foot on the first step. Behind her, she heard a commotion. Eleanor, wait! You can't! Marcus had burst through the lounge doors, running onto the tarmac, his $50 shoes slipping on the painted lines. Tiffany was right behind him, shrieking his name. An FBO security guard was already moving to intercept him. Eleanor, please! He yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. We can fix this. We can be partners again. I'll get rid of her. We can have it back, like it was before. I need you. The last 3 words hung in the air. A pathetic, raw confession. He needed her. He always had. He just hadn't known it until this very second. Eleanor paused on the steps. She turned, looking at the man who had shattered her life. He was a mess. His perfect hair was mussed. His face was streaked and terrified. The security guard had him by the arm, but he was still straining to reach her. She looked at him. The man she had once loved. The man who had called her a footnote. And she felt nothing. No, that wasn't true. She felt a deep, profound, and final sense of release. The ghost that had haunted her was finally gone. "Goodbye, Marcus," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. It was a final judgment. She turned her back on him. For the very last time. She climbed the remaining steps and stepped into the cabin of the Gulf Stream. The interior was a cavern of cream leather, polished dark wood, and soft, indirect lighting. It was quiet, peaceful. The flight attendant closed the door, and the latch engaged with a solid, satisfying thud. The noise of the tarmac and Marcus's desperate screams were cut off completely. Eleanor sank into a seat that felt like a cloud. The flight attendant handed her a hot towel. "We are cleared for takeoff, Ms. Hayes. We should be airborne in 5 minutes." Eleanor nodded, fastening her seatbelt. She looked out the large oval window. She saw Marcus, a tiny, defeated figure, being escorted back into the lounge by security. She saw Tiffany, standing motionless by the citation, her hands over her mouth. Then, the massive Rolls-Royce engines of the G650ER roared to life. The jet began to move, gliding smoothly away from the FBO. It taxied to the runway, paused a moment, and then, with a powerful, breathtaking roar, it accelerated. Eleanor was pressed back into her seat as the plane lifted off the ground, climbing sharply into the bright, clear sky. She watched as Hanscom, then the city of Boston, and then the entire messy, painful chapter of her past shrank beneath her, dissolving into the clouds. She was flying to Geneva. She was flying to her future. And she was, finally, free. 6. Director Hayes. Meaningful ending. The Gulfstream G650ER ascended. It was a silent, relentless push against gravity, a smooth, vibration-free transition from Earth to the stratosphere. Eleanor was held, gently, by the luxurious cream leather, a sensation so different from the loud, rattling struggle of a commercial jet. Beneath her, the patchwork of Boston dissolved into a blur. Then, it was obscured by an impeccable white blanket of clouds. The sun, bright and unfiltered at 41,000 feet, filled the cabin with clean, antiseptic light. For the first 10 minutes, she didn't move. She just stared out the window, her heart rate slowly returning to normal. The image of Marcus's face, pale, terrified, and distorted by his own desperate cries, was etched in her memory. She had expected to feel a surge of triumphant joy, a dizzying, vengeful pleasure. Instead, she felt calm. It was the deep, resonant silence of a heavy vault door closing shut on a prison cell, a cell she hadn't even realized she was in. "Ms. Hayes?" Eleanor turned. The flight attendant, a graceful woman with a soft Nordic accent, was smiling at her. "May I get you a drink? We have a chilled Dom Perignon 2008, or I can prepare that silver needle tea you requested." Eleanor looked down at her practical, worn beige cardigan, the plain cloth tote bag at her feet. "The tea would be lovely. Thank you, Kirsten," she said, reading the name on the flight attendant's badge. A moment later, Mr. Richter emerged from the forward cabin, holding a sleek leather folder. He took the seat opposite her. He was not a man for small talk. "A good departure," he stated, placing the folder on the polished table between them. "Mr. Stone asked me to brief you en route. He felt it was best you arrive prepared." "Prepared for what, exactly?" Eleanor asked, accepting the delicate porcelain cup of tea from Kirsten. "For the magnitude of your new operation," Richter said. He tapped the folder. "This is not a simple acquisition, Ms. Hayes. This is a corporate restructuring. Astrodynamics is not just buying Phoenix Systems. We are building our entire global logistics division around it. And around you." He opened the folder. The first page was an organizational chart. At the very top, in a simple, bold box, was Julian Stone. Directly beneath him was a new corresponding box, Astra Global Dynamics, AGD, and within that box, one name, Eleanor Hayes, Director. Eleanor felt her breath catch. This was not a mid-management position. This was not a team lead role. The chart showed nearly 400 employees across 3 continents, in Hamburg, Singapore, and Los Angeles, who would, as of 9 a.m. tomorrow, report to her. "This is," she began, her mind racing. "This is significantly larger than I anticipated." "Mr. Stone does not do things small," Richter said, his face unreadable. "He is not buying your past work. He is investing in your future potential. The financial package you agreed to is, of course, secure. But this is the work." He flipped the page. It was a budget proposal. The numbers were so large they looked like typos. The allocation for R&D alone was more than the entire valuation of Helios AI at its peak. "Your first directive," Richter continued, "is to integrate your Phoenix platform into our existing infrastructure. Mr. Stone has authorized a full server overhaul. You will have carte blanche. You select the hardware, the team, and the timeline. The system is expected to be fully operational in 6 months." Eleanor leaned back. The warmth of the teacup seeped into her cold hands. The fear that had briefly surfaced was replaced by a familiar, electrical hum. It was the sensation she got when faced with an impossible equation, a complex problem begging to be solved. She wasn't intimidated. She was hungry. "The timeline is too long," she said, her voice sharp and clear. Richter paused, raising an eyebrow. "I beg your pardon. 6 months is too long. The problem isn't the platform, it's the integration. If I have the budget you've listed here and full administrative access, I can have the core system integrated and running in 90 days. We can be beta testing by the new year. I will need to select a red team from your existing cybersecurity division to try and break it." Richter stared at her for a long moment. The polite professional mask wavered, replaced by a glint of genuine respect. "I see," he said. "Mr. Stone was right about you. And the team," Eleanor continued, flipping through the staff dossiers. "These division heads in Hamburg and Singapore, their logistics expertise is based on old models. They will resist. I need to fly to Hamburg first, then Singapore. I need to be on the ground with my engineers. A video call won't suffice." "Mr. Stone anticipated that too," Richter said, a thin smile on his lips. "The G650ER is at your disposal, Director. Your travel schedule will be managed by my office, Director." The title landed with a solid, physical weight. This was real. The rest of the 7-hour flight passed in a blur of concentrated work. Kirsten brought them a meal of seared scallops and risotto, which Eleanor ate while dissecting a complex data flow schema. She had, in the space of one transatlantic flight, transitioned from ex-wife to executive. When she finally closed the folder, the sun was setting ahead of them, painting the sky with violent streaks of purple and orange. She had completely forgotten about Marcus. They landed in Geneva shortly after 8 p.m. local time. The descent was as smooth as the ascent. As Eleanor looked out the window, the city lights sparkled around the dark, placid shape of Lake Geneva. There was no terminal. The jet taxied to a private, silent hangar where a black Mercedes Maybach S-Class waited, its engine purring. "Mr. Stone is expecting you at the headquarters," Richter said, ushering her from the jet stairs directly into the back of the sedan. The air was cold, crisp, and smelled of pine. The drive was silent. Eleanor watched the pristine, ancient city flash by. In the seatback pocket, a tablet displayed international news. A headline from the Financial Times caught her eye. "Helios AI stock in freefall as CEO Sterling faces confidence crisis." She tapped it. The article was brief and brutal. The stock had suspended trading after plunging 68% in a single day. Rumors of a catastrophic system failure, coupled with the loss of a major potential contract, whispered to be with the Astrodynamics conglomerate, had tanked the company's value. Analysts raised long-dormant questions about the company's core IP, which many believed was tied to co-founder Eleanor Hayes, who left the company years ago. CEO Marcus Sterling was unavailable for comment. Eleanor turned the tablet off. It was done. The equation was balanced. There was no joy, only a quiet, logical finality. Lumen, the Astrodynamics headquarters, was a dark glass and steel blade rising from the lake shore. It was a building that radiated power. They were escorted, not to a waiting room, but directly to the penthouse floor. The office was vast, a minimalist expanse of stone and glass overlooking the entire city. Julian Stone rose from behind a massive, empty desk. He was, as she remembered, imposing. He wore a simple black turtleneck and gray slacks, but he dominated the room. "Ms. Hayes," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Good flight." "Productive," Eleanor said, shaking his extended hand. His grip was firm. "So, Richter tells me you think you can beat our timeline by 3 months." "I know I can," she replied. "Good," Stone said. He gestured to the desk. A single, thick document and a pen were laid out. "Our lawyers are present, but I find them tedious. I will summarize. This document grants you total control of the Astra Global Dynamics division. Your compensation is as agreed. Your budget is as listed. Your authority is surpassed only by mine. You will succeed or fail entirely on your own merits. I do not tolerate excuses, and I do not reward failure. I do, however, reward results. Do we have an understanding?" This was a world away from Marcus, with his empty charm, his stolen credit, his promises of vision. This was an austere, cold, and exhilarating meritocracy. "A perfect understanding, Mr. Stone," Eleanor said. She picked up the pen. It was heavy, made of cold black metal. She found the signature line. Eleanor Hayes. She signed her name, her handwriting, once small and precise, now looking bold. The ink flowed thick and dark onto the heavy paper. "Excellent," Stone said. He did not smile. He simply nodded. The deal was closed. His intercom buzzed. "Richter, take Director Hayes to her residence. Have our tailor meet her there in the morning, and clear my schedule for 0900. I want to be in her first briefing." "Yes, sir," Richter said. He turned to Eleanor. "This way, Director." As Eleanor followed him, she paused at the doorway, catching her reflection in the dark glass. She saw a woman in a practical, worn beige cardigan, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, face pale from exhaustion. But her eyes were different. They were sharp, focused, and utterly devoid of fear. Stone spoke one last time, without turning around. "Oh, and Director Hayes." "Yes, Mr. Stone. That cardigan. Burn it. You are not a footnote. You are the one writing the book." Eleanor nodded. A small, sharp smile touched her lips for the first time. "Consider it done." She walked out of the office. The heavy doors closed behind her. Not on a new life, but on a life she had finally, completely, reclaimed for herself. The work was just beginning. The story of Eleanor is not just about the jet. It's about the silence, the silent work, the silent pain, and the silent strength that builds when no one is watching. She proved that success is not about the noise you make or the credit you take. It's about the foundation you build. The world and the people in it can try to tell you that you are a footnote. They can laugh at you from their small jets. But the future belongs to those who, like Eleanor, have the courage to build their own wings. Now it's your turn, audience. 1. What did you think of Eleanor's ultimate revenge? Do you believe in this kind of karma, where true talent and hard work finally win? 2. Have you ever felt like Eleanor, underestimated or made to feel invisible? Share your story. 3. What part of Eleanor's transformation inspired you the most? Leave your comments down below. If you enjoyed this story of justice and resilience, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will make you believe anything is possible.